What do you need to know about the lunar eclipse in Virgo that's happening late tonight on March 14th, 2025 at about almost 3 a.m. in the morning East Coast time? Here's what the chart looks like. You can see the moon in Virgo approaching the south node. And in Pisces, you can see the sun conjunct Saturn and the north node between the sun and Neptune. We also have Jupiter is going square this eclipse. So, well, there's a chance for expansion and opportunity. Before I get into talking about it, I want to talk about how normally you look at eclipses. In this book, Bernadette Brady talks about the Saros series. Each eclipse has a different series that's associated with it, and it occurs every 18 years in the same series that started either at the North Pole or the South Pole. So typically, each eclipse that is in the same Saros series can have similar themes, let's call it that. So here I've shown you how you see March 14th, the total lunar eclipse is at 23 degrees of Virgo. And then on March 29th, there will be a partial solar eclipse at 8 degrees of Aries. But you see 9 new north. Both of those eclipses are in the same Saros series, so they should tend to have similar themes. Bernadette Brady says that Saros series 9 new north is very physically expressive, and that accidents and great physical effort, violence, or any sudden physical events could occur. And mainly it looks like she says that because in that original eclipse from the Saros series, there was the Venus-Mercury conjunction, and I'll show you that we do still have a Venus-Mercury conjunction, is on the Mars-Pluto midpoint, and Mars is on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint, so I can see how that can be associated with perhaps accidents, violence, and sudden things like that. But I want to show you in this eclipse, now there could be similar themes to that, but I want to show you how in this eclipse it looks a little bit different to me. So in tonight's eclipse, I was talking to you about how there's the Venus-Mercury conjunction in Aries, and it is actually not on the midpoint between Pluto and Mars. So I'm not sure that that's really activating those two planets in this eclipse. And also Mars being on the midpoint of Pluto and Uranus, that's not occurring either. So I actually wouldn't really interpret it that way, at least for this eclipse. But what I would do is say that this eclipse, since it is in the same series as the solar eclipse that's going to happen in 2 weeks, that you might have related events. Now, who should be looking at whether this eclipse would impact them? Well, that would be if you have either points like an ascendant or MC, or planets or your nodes in Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, or Gemini. Those are the harder aspects. Or, obviously, like I said, if you have planets, especially if it's your moon or your sun, that might be within, let's say, about 2 to 5 degrees of the eclipse. So that's going to be 23 degrees of Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, or Gemini. Now, the way I look at this is, when you have a lunar eclipse, what's happening is the Earth is sitting in between the sun and the moon, so the moon is not reflecting all of the sun's light. It's not necessarily receiving that light from consciousness, which represents the sun, and so the light of the moon is dimmed. In this sense, you may have more ability to be conscious about the things that you are doing where that moon is, and have fewer emotional reactions, fewer habitual reactions. And because it's on the south node, and also because it is a full moon, you may find that there are things that you need to release in order to continue on with the cycle and move forward. And I think that this eclipse will give you the ability to sort of reason through that. Now, with Saturn conjunct the sun and opposing the moon, it may feel like things go a little bit slowly at first. So I would recommend, because this eclipse is ruled by Mercury, because Mercury rules Virgo, and Mercury is going to go retrograde the following day, or maybe it's in the same day, but within 24 hours after this eclipse. So already things will sort of be really slow, and you need to reconsider things that have been happening up until this point. But that will give you, this is a sort of a cerebral eclipse, you know, and related to also your emotions and how you go about doing things. But I think that with that Mercury ruling this eclipse, you're going to be able to really reason through what it is you need to release, in terms of how you are perhaps being a little bit too critical, or, you know, maybe you're not organizing things enough, or maybe you're over organizing. What is it with respect to the house that you have Virgo in that needs to be released and changed, that's going to support you in going forward towards your solar purpose in the Pisces area? Because in about 4 days after this eclipse, you may feel an extra activation about things you really want in terms of that Pisces house. And by probably about 3 weeks after this eclipse, you may really be able to bring that into fruition. This is going to be, again, I think this is a more cerebral eclipse. And so by the time we get around to the solar eclipse, Mercury will have gone cazimi with the sun, and so you will really have a better idea of what's going to happen. But it will require you to perhaps release some things related to the Virgo area of your chart. The other thing is that this is sort of a situation that may involve a lot of other people, or other people may stimulate you to change, and then also to consider what it is you really want in terms of say creativity, compassion, or connection with the spiritual. That's Pisces, right? But you're going to have to let go of a bit of the structure that you're hanging on to, the bit of the structure and details and criticism that you're used to. Or maybe there's some health habits or something that you need to release in order to move forward with your connection with the larger community or with spirit. And then the thing, so there is this opposition, which is always with a full moon, and you have your sense of how you do things. You may be, other people may confuse you about what you want to do. So that's why it's important to stay within your own self and sort of, you know yourself. And then you may feel restricted by other people or other people's unclear rules. But again, as with anything, it's just important to go within and to know yourself. Uranus there in Taurus is really what's telling me that it's important for you to pay attention to those little insights that you got, because Uranus is trine this eclipse. You see, it's trining the moon, how you go about doing things, and trining the sun, which is your conscious way of going through the world, what it is you really want, who you truly are at your core. And if you pay attention to the inspiration, you can have sudden insights, you can have sudden changes happen. And in the trine and the sextile to the sun, these things can happen automatically if you allow them. We also have Mars that is trine the nodes and the sun in this eclipse. So you will be able to do things, but I think kind of maybe we'll wait until 3 weeks from now when Mercury's going forward again. And then I believe the moon is actually going to conjunct Mars in Cancer and probably you'll be able to get a lot of things going at that point in time. And again, bringing up this trine from Uranus to the moon and the sun, that is what's going to really help make this opposition a little bit easier. So when some, maybe authority comes up against you, or you think people are not being truthful with you, or are trying to prevent you from moving forward and getting what you really want, pay attention to these ideas that are maybe grounded in your desire for a foundation, for, maybe being in touch with nature and your comfort, because that's coming from the Taurus area. And that trine and that sextile will make that opposition easier if you focus in on what your Taurus area of life is. With respect to the Saros series, here is a little list of the last time there was a lunar eclipse in this particular Saros series. The last time was March 3rd, 2007, and before that, February 20th, 1989, and then February 10th, 1971. So if you were alive at those times, potentially there could be kind of the same or similar kind of vibe, but I'm not sure about that. So we should all just kind of pay attention to see if these Saros series are repeating themes or not. And the other thing, again, I want to emphasize is that it's really probably only going to impact you if you have points or planets that are close to where the eclipse actually happens. And this is from astroseek.com. It just shows you where the eclipse might aspect in your chart. So you see that where the moon is, it's 23 degrees 56 minutes, and then it shows you the sextile to Scorpio, the square to Sag, the trine to Capricorn, and the inconjunct to Aquarius, the opposition to Pisces, and the same on the other side. So that'll kind of tell you, if you have planets or points from 23 degrees till about the end of those signs, then you might expect some impact from this lunar eclipse. And I think the lunar eclipse is potentially more internal, although whatever you are considering internally, you will potentially make a decision that causes things externally. So eclipses are known to have significant endings and beginnings, and the lunar eclipse is really a culmination of things that might be going on for you.